So 2 Chronicles chapter 5, the temple is finished on the construction. They've got it all done. Now we're going to get into preparing it so that it can be used. So we're almost to the dedication of this temple. So verse 1, thus all the work that Solomon made for the house of the Lord was finished. And Solomon brought in all the things that David his father had dedicated, and the silver and the gold and the instruments put he among the treasures of the house of God. Then Solomon assembled the elders of Israel and the heads of the tribes, the chief of the fathers of the children of Israel, unto Jerusalem to bring up the ark of the covenant of the Lord out of the city of David, which is Zion. So they're bringing the ark out from the tent where David had it put until the temple could be built. Now they're going to move this in as one of the final things, move the ark of the covenant into the new temple. Wherefore, this is verse 3, all the men of Israel assembled themselves unto the king in the feast, which was in the 7th month. And all the elders of Israel came, and the Levites took up the ark. And they brought up the ark and the tabernacle of the congregation, and all the holy vessels that were in the tabernacle. These did the priests and the Levites bring up. Also King Solomon and all the congregation of Israel that were assembled unto him before the ark sacrificed sheep and oxen, which could not be told nor numbered for multitude. And the priests brought in the ark of the covenant of the Lord unto his place, to the oracle of the house, into the most holy place, even under the wings of the cherubims. For the cherubims spread forth their wings over the place of the ark, and the cherubims covered the ark and the staves thereof above. And they drew out the staves of the ark, that the ends of the staves were seen from the ark before the oracle, but they were not seen without, and there it is unto this day. There was nothing in the ark save the 2 tables which Moses put therein at Horeb, when the Lord made a covenant with the children of Israel when they came out of Egypt. Now I'm going to pause here for just a second. So they've moved the ark of the covenant. Remember, on the sides of the ark are the rings. They run the staves through the rings. These are sticks that are plated with gold, and they can carry it on their shoulders, basically, to carry the ark. They bring the ark in. They put it in the Holy of Holies place. There's the cherubims. There's cherubims on the top of the ark that represent the mercy seat, the seat where God sits. But then there were cherubims in the room as well. And so they built all this out. They put it in there. It's fascinating in verse 10 that it tells us what was in the Ark of the Covenant. And it says here that it was, the only thing was the 2 tables that Moses put in there in Horeb. Now, if you go back to the Genesis chapters, which I'd recommend you do, you go back to Genesis. There's a couple things that are good for us to learn in this part here. If you remember, when Moses goes up to the mount, okay, we see this in the great video, The 10 Commandments by Cecil B. DeMille. Moses goes up. He's gone for 40 days. The people get restless. They convince Aaron, Moses' brother, to build them a golden calf so they could worship. They could worship God. Basically, they went back to an idol worship type way to worship their God. And then Moses comes down, he sees them, he throws the tablets, they break, he goes up and has to get another set of tablets. What's important, and you should go watch these videos to get more detail, the second set of tablets are the ones that contain the 10 Commandments and a few other things in them. The first set of tablets was a more comprehensive understanding of the gospel of Jesus Christ. Not quite what Jesus gave in the New Testament, but a lot closer than just having the 10 Commandments. So this is something that's really important for us to understand. Okay, the tablets were mainly the 10 Commandments and a little bit of extra writing on them for some other rules. Most of those rules either were written down prior to Moses going up, because he received a revelation to tell the people to promise to make a covenant, to work with God, basically. And they said, we'll work with God, but we don't want to see him. So Moses had to be the intercessory for them, basically. And then there's some things he got after this time as well. That is, all of that pulled together is the law of Moses, basically, and what we get in the first 5 books of the Old Testament as the history of the people, and then the laws of Moses. So if you think of Leviticus and Numbers and Deuteronomy, that's where most of the law is delineated out. So in the history, when we go back there, there was the 10 Commandments plates. in the Ark of the Covenant. There was Aaron's rod in there at some point. Remember, Aaron had a walking stick, and a bud came up off that stick at some point. God made it flower. That was actually placed in the Ark of the Covenant at way back then as well. And then there was a bowl of manna that was left in there in remembrance of what God did during the 40-year wandering in the desert that Israel went through. So the rod of Aaron and the bowl of manna have been taken out of the ark at some point since that time to now. When that was taken out, what happened to those, we don't know. I haven't seen what that happened. If you happen to know any of those things, put it in the comments so we can share that with everybody else. But I haven't seen anywhere where we know what happened to those. So just a little bit interesting tidbit. The tablet stayed, but the rod of Aaron and the bowl of shewbread were both taken out at some point from the Ark of the Covenant. Verse 11, and it came to pass when the priests were come out of the holy place, for all the priests that were present were sanctified, and did not then wait by course. Also the Levites, which were the singers, and all of them of Asaph and Heman, of Jeduthun, with their sons and their brethren, he being arrayed in white linen, having cymbals and psalteries and harps, stood at the east end of the altar, with them 120 priests sounding with trumpets. And it came to pass, as the trumpeters and singers were as one, to make one sound to be heard in praising and thanking the Lord, when they lifted up their voice with the trumpets and cymbals and instruments of music, praised the Lord, saying, for he is good, for his mercy endureth forever. That then the house was filled with a cloud, even the house of the Lord. So that the priests could not stand to minister by reason of the cloud, for the glory of the Lord had filled the house of God. So this is God is now coming to this temple. This is the first time that God is coming down onto this temple, and in a way he is accepting it, basically, and kind of endorsing what they've done. They're singing the praises, the presence of God appears, and it becomes so intense for these people that they kind of have to stop praising God and doing this stuff because they can't see. It's just so intense. There's this cloud coming around them. They're having a hard time seeing and doing things. So it's pretty interesting what happens with this. Now, after this comes the dedication of the temple. So let's jump into the next chapter for that.